Taking a look at the strongest and weakest units on the Buccaneers, that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this Monday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at @JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with a big announcement coming up later in the show about that. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. No ads or hashtags or anything like that. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Which position group has the most to prove, and which players are the best, and who needs to send a message? All of that coming up in a little bit. But let's start with this year's 2024 Buccaneers team and which unit is the strongest. I'm going to tell you the best position group on each side of the ball, and we're going to start on offense. And I feel like the obvious selection here is wide receiver. With Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at the top, you already have one of the best duos in the NFL lining up on just about every play. Then you had the additions of Jalen McMillan and Cameron Johnson providing threats outside of those two that the Bucs really didn't have last season. We know what Jalen McMillan brings. He has a huge route tree with refined skills to beat opposing corners. He has a veteran's ability to high point the football and help out Baker Mayfield. Baker said it himself. The throw doesn't have to be perfect when a guy like Jalen can go up and get it against anyone. And then absolutely phenomenal hands. As for Cam Johnson, he provides that do-it-all kind of player. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. He's being used in the run game. You can use him with those quick bubble screens, getting open at the chains, taking the top off the defense. He is kind of the Swiss Army knife type of player at the wide receiver position for these Buccaneers. He's going to be the wild card for this group and for this offense. Then, of course, you're bringing back Trey Palmer as the speedy deep threat. Hopefully, the deep ball connection between Palmer and Baker Mayfield is better than what it was last year, but Palmer proved throughout the year to be a valuable asset. Even beyond those five, you have Raheem Jarrett on injured reserve with the designation to return. But then take a look at the guys on the practice squad. You have Sterling Shepard, who has plenty of NFL experience. Cody Thompson, who led the entire NFL in receptions during the preseason, showing that he can make those tough contested catches. He's not scared to go over the middle. He's everything that you want in a receiver. And then you have Ryan Miller, who did an incredible job in his own right. Any one of those guys could have made NFL rosters across the league. So the Bucs have a spoil of riches at the receiver position, and it's a big reason that they're going to find plenty of success under Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator. On the defensive side, I have to go with safety. Antoine Winfield Jr. is already the best safety in the league, but the last two seasons have been a disaster outside of Winfield at the safety position. So what do? They bring back Jordan Whitehead, who is a massive upgrade, and the Bucs are immediately able to form one of the best safety tandems in the NFL. The top two safety tandems in all of the NFL could be right there in the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Then you have Kayvon Merriweather, who has shown that he can lay the boom when he has the chance. Absolutely fantastic job during training camp and the preseason to be able to make this roster. And then it's a cast of versatile players that are able to not only fill in at safety, but also play corner. Tyke Smith, Christian Izien. We've even seen Zion McCollum back at safety on occasion. This is the beauty of what Todd Bowles and Jason Light did with the 11 defensive backs that they kept. Bowles' defense allows him to line these guys up all over the place and do a lot of different things to confuse opposing quarterbacks, which will come in handy this weekend. Yes, this weekend against a rookie making his first NFL start when Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders come to town. Much like the receivers, the Bucs kept two really solid safeties on the practice squad in case they needed to bring one up. Rachaad Wisdom was a training camp stud, and then Marcus Banks came on strong late in training camp and the preseason. These two can slide into the defense on the active roster, and the Bucs wouldn't skip a beat. Of course, if serious injury strikes guys like Antoine or Mike or Chris, and obviously all fingers are crossed that that doesn't happen, but there is going to be some production drop off, but it's not like falling off of a cliff like it would have been last year. The Buccaneers are well positioned to make it through the season no matter what happens with the depth of talent that they built up in these two position groups. And I guess you could lump safeties and corners in together. I mentioned they kept 11 defensive backs, but I would feel more confident in the Bucs' abilities to withstand injury at safety than I am if, say, Zion McCollum or Jamel Dean were to go down for any extended period of time. While the Bucs are deep at other positions, I don't think either side of the ball has a better crop of elite as well as young talent that can play at as high of a level from top to bottom as these two position groups can. You can say that receiver is a little thin just because there are only 5 of them on the 53-man roster, but I look at it as there being 8 with a 9th on the way with the practice squad. This is where the Bucs are really going to be able to not only make some noise, but take a giant leap forward compared to last season when after Mike and Chris, the drop-off was significant. This isn't going to be a situation where the third leading wide receiver was actually 5th on the team in receiving yards. It's going to make all the difference in how teams try to defend Tampa and how they can exploit those defenses under Liam Cohen with all of the weapons that they have at their disposal. There are some position groups that aren't quite as solid. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All know how much I love going to live events, concerts, sporting events. I'm constantly talking on the show about a concert or a game I'm getting ready to see. And the first place that I'm checking out when I look for tickets is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. In fact, I just used Game Time Picks to land some concert tickets for this past weekend for myself, my son, and his girlfriend. You know, I've used Game Time for everything from NBA to NHL to concerts. And with all-in pricing, I know exactly what I'm going to spend up front, so there's no surprises when I get to checkout. Make sure you turn on the all-in pricing feature. I also have the knowledge of using Game Time's lowest price guarantee so that if I find tickets in the same section and row for cheaper, Game Time is going to credit me 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. So many of us put all our focus and energy into making sure we're there to provide for other people and always put ourselves on the back burner, and that can lead to problems building up from being left there too long. That's why it's so important to treat your mental health with the same care and attention you give to everyone else in your life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to fit around your busy schedule so that you don't have to leave yourself on the back burner anymore. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Taking a look at where the Bucs aren't so strong as we did before, let's go ahead and start with the offensive side of the ball. While quarterback is the easy one here, given that the Bucs only kept Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask with rookie Michael Pratt on the practice squad, it's not really a fair assessment. I think just about any team in the NFL that loses its starting quarterback is going to fall short of their true potential. That's nothing against Kyle. It's just the reality of the situation. So I'm going to say running back, and that might surprise some of you. I have talked a lot on this show about how great I think the Rachaad Bucky duo is going to be this year and why I came around on the selection of Bucky Irving after sitting down and watching him play for Oregon. Then again, throughout training camp and the preseason, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not an overly deep position. Sean Tucker has shown a lot of improvement over his performances last season, but that does not mean that his preseason production and performances are going to translate to regular season production. With Rachaad being the top back and then Bucky coming in throughout games, an injury could absolutely derail this running back room. DJ Williams getting called up from the practice squad if someone goes down isn't going to have the same kind of impact as those receivers or safeties that I mentioned earlier. No, Rachaad doesn't have to do it all on his own this year, but I think I would be a lot more comfortable if Chase Edmonds wasn't on season-ending IR and they had a guy that could come in with a little more experience than what they currently have. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get through this season without injuries, but to get through it without an injury to a player among one of the highest utilized position groups when we know that they take a big beating throughout the year will be next to impossible. If Rachaad or Bucky go down, it could be right back to one of the least efficient rushing offenses in the NFL. Defensively, I'm not going to continue to hammer the edge rushers. I liked what I saw. I'm cautiously optimistic about what they can accomplish, but I think my big concern is defensive line. You have Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey, who everyone is excited about, and how could you not be? It's Vea and Kancey, but beyond that, it's question after question. Logan Hall hasn't exactly been a barn burner since he arrived. Then as far as depth, you have Greg Gaines, who was okay in limited opportunities last year. William Golston is what he is at this point. He's a great run defender, but he isn't going to create chaos in the pocket. Ernest Brown showed flashes in preseason. He's still raw and young. Then on the practice squad, you have CJ Brewer and Mike Green. CJ Brewer, just like Ernest Brown, flashes in the preseason. Some great plays were made, but he's still a raw prospect and he's still really young. Vita Vea hasn't exactly been the model of health and availability. He's only played a full season twice in his 6-year career. So if he's out, there is a significant drop-off, and Vea being out affects everything. He is the guy that has to collapse the interior of the pocket and make way for blitzing players. He's the one that is commanding double teams and allowing players like Kancey, Yaya, Diaby, the rest of the edge group to get into the backfield and get after the quarterback. Nobody else on this Buccaneers roster can do what Vita does, and the defense essentially funnels through him. As far as Kancey, again, there's no one on the roster that can step in and replicate his speed and his quickness to beat out bigger offensive linemen at the snap. He was a game changer last season after he returned from injury, and we all expect another step forward this year, but he's also no stranger to missing time. Golston cannot replicate that or have that level of impact. Neither can Ernest Brown, neither can CJ Brewer. Things get really, really dicey for the running backs and the defensive line when you have to start dipping into the reserves. Of course, we all hope that that isn't the case and the starters are going to be able to stay healthy and effective, but you cannot assume that all of your top players across the roster are going to escape a grueling 18-week schedule unscathed. It's just not reasonable. It doesn't happen. The Bucs are going to need some unexpected players to rise to the occasion this season. The best players on each side of the ball and which players have the most to prove this season. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. It's super simple to play. You just pick more or less than a player's stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's not you against thousands of other fantasy players and sharks, just you against the numbers. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, all lowercase, LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Wrapping things up here on a holiday Monday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And who are the top dogs and who needs to step up for the Bucs this season? Offensively, this one is tough, but I have to go with Tristan Wirfs. Even switching positions last year, he didn't miss a beat. He's arguably the best left tackle in football and got paid accordingly, but he's the guy that sets the tone for the trenches. We're all excited about Graham Barton. We all have high expectations for Ben Bredeson, but Tristan is the captain of the ship. He drives what the O-line is able to do, and he's the one that keeps Baker Mayfield from being flattened on his blind side. We all love Baker and Mike and Chris and Rachaad and all the players on offense, but Tristan is the guy that's already on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and he's just now entering his 5th season. He's a captain. He's a leader. He's a dude that just loves to play football. I got to say that he is the top dog on offense, even over Mike Evans, but it's close. So don't kill me in the comment section. We know Mike Evans is going to be a Hall of Famer. We know what he does year in and year out. But when you have to choose just one, I am going to, I'm going to roll with Tristan being the top offensive player for the Buccaneers in 2024. Defensively, it's another tough one. You have a lot of incredible talent on the defensive side of the ball, but to me, It's Lavonte David, the unquestioned leader, the model of consistency and reliability, the ageless wonder. Lavonte is so important to what Todd Bowles wants to do on defense. He's the playmaker. He's a calming presence amidst the chaos. There is no one in the NFL more consistent while being ignored than Lavonte David. And like Tristan, he is the captain that drives the ship defensively. The landscape of inside linebacker for the Buccaneers has changed dramatically over the last decade, with one exception. You've had Quan Alexander. You've had Devin White, both of them here and then gone after their rookie deals. Now it's Lavonte leading the next group of young up-and-comers at linebacker in KJ Britt, JJ Russell, and Servassier Dennis. He is everything to the defense, and for as good as Vita and Antoine are, Lavonte is the man that they task with leading all of them. As for who has a lot to prove this season, offensively, I'm going with Rachaad White. We know what he's capable of, but it's all on him now. He's been given the tools to succeed with new faces on the offensive line and an offensive coordinator that is going to set him up for success. Is he the player that we all believe he is, or will we see more of the dancing around and hesitation that we had last year that turned potential short gains into no gains or even losses? Rachaad is insanely talented, but he has to take the next step if he's going to be included in conversations with the likes of Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. He has the talent and the ability to be included with those kinds of names, but that production has to match that ability and that talent. They added Graham Barton. They added Ben Bredesen. They added new receiving threats. They brought in Bucky Irving to take some of his workload off of his shoulders, keep him more fresh, keep him more effective. All of this should open a huge door for Rachaad to have a breakout performance in possibly the best year of his career to this point, and be among the top 5 running backs in yards and, yes, even touchdowns. But we got to see it, Rachaad. We know it's in there. We know you have the capability, but we have to see it on game day. Defensively, I'm going with Yaya Diaby. The man has had a hype train with his name on it going a million miles an hour since March. National pundits, local media, coaches, teammates, fans, everyone is talking about what a great player he can be. You know, he's a double-digit sack guy. He's the new anchor of the edge rush. He has to make good on all of that. 7.5 sacks last season was great, and it came in 7 starts. But all of those sacks came in just 5 games. His first sack didn't come until week 7. Diaby has to get off to a hot start, and it can't just be 5 or 6 games where he amasses 10 sacks. He has to show that he's the playmaker the Bucs are relying on to be a constant threat to get a quarterback on the ground and on key third downs, late in games. He has to do it week in and week out. Now, Diaby didn't play in a game where he was on the field for more than 50% of defensive snaps until week 11 of last year, and then it stayed that way the rest of the year. It's going to be that way the entire season. So with more opportunity, you would think there would be more production, but Diaby has to prove that the Bucs were right in making him the focal point. JTS is what he is. Braswell is a rookie. Marquise Watts and Jose Ramirez are unproven. Diaby has to be the guy week in, week out, starting this Sunday if the defense is going to be successful. Finally, I want to wrap up this show with the announcement that I teased on Friday. For the insiders, they saw it. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, I am no longer the deputy editor of BucsNation.com. I have moved on from SB Nation. And real quick, I got a lot of questions about this, both on Twitter and from the insiders. This does not affect the Locked On podcast at all. I am still the host of the show. I'm still coming to you 5 days a week. every week for the rest of the foreseeable future, basically until June of next year. So this has no effect on the Locked On Bucs podcast or what you guys should expect from me here. However, for those that want to consume my written content and for those that want to experience what has been years in the making, and I mean that quite literally, this has been a project that I have been part of working on over the course of the last 2 years, and it has finally come to fruition. I am the editor-in-chief of the 813 Network. This was something that started as a small idea by JC Cornell. Those of you that know, he started the Draft Network years and years ago. And we have teamed up with the guys from the Loose Cannons podcast, Samer, Christian, Stank. We have Jake Arians. We have Benjamin Albright. We have Rock Riley as our boots on the ground at $1 every single day. Carter Donick is going to be doing long form, big time breakdowns. This is an incredible staff. It's been an incredible labor of love. And I am so excited that the 813.tv is now live. You can follow it on socials. You can follow it, of course, at the 813.tv. I will still have my pick six coming up every week after Buccaneers games. That is going to be a feature on the website. But we want to change the way you all get to consume Buccaneers content. It's going to have written articles. It's going to have podcasts and YouTube shows posting every day. But we are a one-stop shop. You get everything that you need all in one place. The videos, the breakdowns, little video snippets from Rock Riley daily from $1 Place, all of it over on the website. This has been a long time coming. So excited to team up with guys like JC, the Loose Cannons guys, Jake Arians. It's been so much fun, and I'm so happy that I finally get to announce it to each and every one of you. So in addition to Locked On Bucs every day, make sure you are checking out the 813.tv for all of your Buccaneers news. That is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Again, check out the 813.tv. Make sure that you are following on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @Yarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.